This storytelling speech is about Hansel and Gretel, a very well known children's story. Once upon a time, there was a brother and sister called Hansel and Gretel. They lived with their father and stepmother in a tiny cottage at the edge of a huge forest. Their father was a woodcutter and he was very, very poor. One day, the woodcutter said to his wife, "We have no money left and I can't afford to buy any more food." The woodcutter didn't know what to do, but his wife had an idea. The stepmother said, "Take the children into the forest and leave them there. That way we will have two less mouths to feed." The woodcutter was very unhappy, but his wife insisted and he finally agreed. Hansel and Gretel had been listening at the door and Gretel was very frightened, but Hansel had a plan. Hansel said, "I know what to do." Hansel crept out of the house and gathered together lots of little white pebbles, which he put in his pocket. The next day, the woodcutter and his wife took Hansel and Gretel into the forest. As they walked, Hansel dropped the pebbles on the path. After a while, they came to a clearing and the woodcutter told the children to wait. The woodcutter said, "We are going to collect some wood." When they did not return, Hansel and Gretel began to walk. They could see the little white pebbles gleaming in the moonlight, and they followed them all the way home. Their father was overjoyed to see them and hugged them both. But their stepmother was very angry. "You must take them much deeper into the forest next time," stepmother said. The stepmother and woodcutter argued for a while about getting rid of the children. That night, Hansel and Gretel's stepmother locked their door so they could not collect any more white pebbles. The next day, the woodcutter took them deeper into the forest. In Hansel's pocket was a small piece of bread. He crumbled up the bread, and as they walked, he dropped a trail of crumbs, but the birds saw the tasty crumbs and flew down to eat them. Then the woodcutter returned home, leaving Hansel and Gretel once again. The moon began to shine, but the crumbs had all gone. What could they do? Hansel and Gretel walked further into the forest. They were very tired and very hungry. They walked and walked. Then, just as they thought they could walk no more, they saw a very strange house. The windows and the roof, the chimney, the door, and even the walls were made of sweets and cake. The children couldn't believe their eyes. Hansel broke off a piece of the wall and put it into his mouth. "Gingerbread," Hansel says. Then Gretel broke off a little piece of the door. "Chocolate," Gretel says. But from inside the house, someone was watching. An evil old witch lived there. Just as Gretel was about to eat another piece of the chocolate door, the children heard a noise. The door opened and out stepped the wicked witch. "Come in, my dears," the witch said. The witch invited the children in for some tea, but as soon as they stepped inside the house, the nasty witch grabbed Hansel. She put him inside a cage and locked him in. Then she gave him lots of food to fatten him up. "I'm going to eat you," the witch says. The witch gave Gretel a broom and told her to do all the housework. Every day, the evil old witch went to see Hansel to check if he was getting any fatter. "Let me feel your finger," the witch says. Hansel poked a chicken bone through the bar of the cage. The witch, who couldn't see very well, felt the bone. The witch thought he was still too thin. Day after day, the witch waited for Hansel to get fatter. He was still too thin for the witch after giving her the chicken bone. One day, the witch grew very impatient. She decided that she was not going to wait any longer. "I'm going to eat you anyway," she says. The witch told Gretel that she was going to cook Hansel in her fire. Gretel looked at her and asked where the fire was. The witch led Gretel to the oven and opened the door. "I can't see the fire," Gretel says. The witch opened the door wider. "I still can't see the fire," Gretel says. The witch opened the door as wide as she could and peered into the oven. Gretel gave the witch an enormous push. The witch fell into the oven and Gretel slammed the door shut. Then she ran to release Hansel from the cage. In a corner of the house, they could see something sparkling. It was the witch's treasure. Hansel and Gretel picked it up and began to walk through the forest. After many days, they finally found their way home. The father was overjoyed to see them, and their stepmother had already left. Hansel and Gretel were home again at last, and the wicked witch was gone. They gave their father the treasure, and they never went hungry ever again.